Well, welcome to this week's podcast of Where the Rubber Meets the Road. It's good to be back in the room again. This week we're short one of the one member. Pastor Ryle is getting ready to go out of town on a mission trip to Africa, so he decided to take his beautiful bride to the beach for a couple of days and kind of relax and hang out with her before he goes off for 2 weeks to do mission work in Africa. So please keep him and the team that's going in your thoughts and prayers. I know they're gonna get a blessing, and hopefully will be a great blessing to a lot of people over there and share Jesus. So, kind of wanted to just have a part two to last week's, marriage up and downs. We got Preacher Tony here with us and his lovely wife Miss Kelly, and Chris Tucker and his wife Melissa, and then my wife Carla's here with us today. So, just wanted to we had a lot of fun last week and kind of just keep building on that and kind of talk about children. I think every one of us sitting in this room's got children all through different stages of life. I know me and Carla's got, elementary schoolers and middle schoolers. I think Chris's youngins are pretty much grown.
Freshly out of school.
Yeah, and
Different levels.
Tony, I think all yours are pretty much grown, and you get to be the one that has some fun, spoil them and send some home, huh?
Yeah.
Some new additions. So
Yeah.
that's good stuff there. I just kind of wanted to, what's it like raising kids today? And I can tell you it's a challenge to say the least on my end. My kids have things that I didn't have growing up. We didn't have a fast-paced world where you could get any piece of information that you wanted at the click of a few buttons on a cell phone. It's a different world we're living in today. It's a dangerous world that we're living in today, a scary world. But just how do we do it, and how do you do it, and how do you raise them right? Like in Proverbs, you train up a child in the way it should go. When they're old, they won't depart from it. I fully believe that. I thank God every day that I had a great grandma who took me to church when I was 2 weeks old, and instilled that in me at a young age, and thank God I didn't depart from it all the way. I did turn my back when I got older, and we do things as we're growing up, and we think we know better than God knows, but thank God that when you turn back around, He is standing right there.
That's right.
He didn't leave you; you left Him. So it's a difficult time too in this world that we're living in today, and the walk that our kids have to go through. But y'all jump in anytime.
I had a thought as you were doing the introduction here. Not only do we have kids in different states, like you said, yours elementary, middle. Mine just finished high school and college. Tony's kids are out there having babies, and they're all different stages, but they're also from different, like, you have pre-wokeism, pre-COVID kids, middle of wokeism kids, and your kids are on the back side of that. Now they experience, they come through the heavy of it, but at the age of their understanding, they're kind of on the back side of that. So
Yeah.
There's a different view to look at it there too, because coming up, we didn't know what that mess was.
That's right.
Wokeism. I mean, I had friends of all races. I grew up in Central Florida. It was a hodgepodge of every kind of person you could imagine, and we all played together. We didn't. I mean, we would have done it any other way, but we didn't have a choice.
Right.
I rode my bicycle across town where people wouldn't normally go just to play basketball with some buddies, and then come back home on a bicycle. We just did that. Played football, pick up football games. It didn't matter.
That's the thing now. I mean, I rode a bicycle everywhere I went. How did I make money when I was a teenager? I carried shopping bags in my pockets and picked cans up on the side of the road and loaded them up on bicycle handlebars, and would get somebody to take me to the recycling place to get a few dollars for something. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to let my youngins ride a bicycle out of sight down the road that we live on right now. And we live out in the sticks.
No.
Literally, you barely get internet out there where we live at. But, when I was coming up, it wouldn't be nothing to be going 4, 5, 6, 7 miles from the house on a bicycle.
Yep.
Just
Easy.
Finding a bridge to play under. I mean, I can remember that. You go out there and get down by the creek, running down, just go out and have a good time. But not now.
So where we want to start? We want to start with the older group and work our way down, or we want to start with the youngest and work our way up? Either way, I'm not first.
He's never first, is he?
I really don't know where to start, to be honest with you. My kids were one's what? How old's Caleb? 27?
27,
And so
25.
25. So, I mean, it was a different time. Even then, it was a different time. You know, you do everything you can to raise your kids the best that you can. And I think during our time, it was a lot different than it is now. You know, you have the same old, you know, I'm going to tear your tail up if you don't do your schoolwork or, you know, this, that, and the other. You know, you had your sports, and I'll come back to that later, you know, and it was just a different time. But the thing that I, if I could do it over again, I would not put so much emphasis on trying to get everything I could for them.
Yeah.
I believe I would have just spent more time, you know, looking back on it now. One thing that's precious is time. And the one thing that I regret was some of the times that I didn't take the time to spend with mine that I should have because of decisions that I made to chase money. And it was just, you know, it's just a different time. And, you know, I had good youngins. I did. You know, I still do. I love them to death. But you know, there's a lot of things that I would love to say that I'm not. But there's principles that I wish I would have been more, how do I say it? More of a father than a friend. I'll just leave it at that. And you learn as you go I don't know how to say what I want to say, but it's tough. It's tough. I think the biggest thing for married couples having younger kids is for married couples to be on the same page.
Yeah.
With discipline and, you know, just the things that come with it. I'm thankful that me and my wife were both on the same page. There was times I was a little harder than she was, but then there was times she was a little harder than I was. But you learn to come together, and if you don't come together, what happens is they begin to play one against another. Well, Mama said I could. She didn't care. What did you say? Well, I said you want. Well, Mama said I could. And then the next thing you know, you got them. You know, that's what I'm saying. You just got to be on the same page. So.
And a lot of times Mama hadn't said they couldn't. They kind of know how to word it. They're smart.
And I think all kids will go through that as they're growing up to try to get what they want. But
They do.
My two Clay will be 14 here in a few months, and Drew will be 11, and both of them have figured out how to do that sometimes. So, yeah.
They do.
Matter of fact, it happened last night. Well, I want to go do this. I said no. Well, Mama would let me do it. Well, then you call your mama and then hand me the phone.
I think a big part with it is, especially when discipline and any of it, you just have to be consistent in whatever you do. You have to have a consistent with what you allow and what you don't allow. One of my pet peeves, I can't stand it. It grates on my nerves, is when I hear a parent telling a child, well, don't do that again. Don't let me catch you do that again. If you do that one more time, if you do it again, and I'm thinking the kids are smart. They know. And if you done told them 5 times, don't do it again, they're going to keep on doing it. So you have to be consistent and say, I'm going to tell you one time what not to do. And then after that, this is the consequence for your actions.
I know. Growing up, Kelly, my daddy was like that. If my daddy told us what we could and couldn't do, that was our warning.
Exactly.
And
You
if we
didn't get
did
5
it,
and 6
no.
warnings.
And if we did it, I mean, it was automatic. And I knew he meant it. And that's how God is too. You know, our warning is His word. That's it.
I'll
You
never
know.
forget, we were sitting around the dinner table one night, and I don't know. I think Caleb might have been in 4th or 5th grade. He was just starting to, test the waters a little bit. And he just kept talking back. He was going to have the last word. And we sitting around, and I said, if you talk back to me one more time, I'm going to pop you in the mouth. Well, he did, and I turned around and I popped him in the mouth, and my ring caught his lip, and it busted his lip. Then he was bleeding, and I felt like a dog. But he looked at me and said, "You hit me in the mouth." I said, "Well, I told you.
Hey, that's right. I mean, I told you.
You got one warning. That was it." I mean, I felt bad, but that was your consequence.
I can tell you a quick story about a situation like that. We were married, and I was down at my mama's house with my wife. I'm probably 24, 25 years old, and I was just picking. My mama did not take it as picking, but she said something, and I said something back, just playing. And when I turned around, she caught the other side of my face, and my head went the other way. And I looked at my wife, and I said, "Get your stuff. We going. We out."
I mean, that's the way it was.
But my mama didn't play. And I can't tell you how many times my grandma pulled off on the side of the road on 74 and cut a switch off a dogwood tree in Peachland and poked it and tore my legs up. I learned at a young age, sat behind the driver's seat. That way my cousin got it worse than I did. She couldn't bend that arm back just right to get me.
But that's the way it was. My daddy just had to look at me. He didn't have to touch me.
That's what I was gonna say. I grew up going to church with my grandma and my mama Simpson, and we'd go to Utah Baptist, and at that point, children were meant to be seen, not heard. And I don't know how many times I heard that, but you didn't play, you didn't make noises, you didn't squirm, you sat still in that pew, and if you did something you weren't supposed to, you got the look. And like, I love hearing that story that Ryle tells about him back there carving in the pew at church and getting in trouble because it makes me think of going to church with my grandma, because all she'd have to do, if we were back there giggling or carrying on, all she'd have to do, and we always sat with her. We didn't get to sit anywhere else. But if we were carrying on, she would cut her eyes at us, and we knew we were going to get our tail tore up when we got home. And if we got in trouble at her house or at church, we'd get it again when we got home. And it was going to be a bad day. But that's a reverence that kids back then had that I don't think kids nowadays have. So that's a difference in the discipline, I think, with generations.
That's right.
And a level of respect that the kids nowadays don't have.
And unfortunately, we have a lot of kids nowadays that aren't getting a biblical raising in a church, learning any of that reverence. My grandma, the little hairs on the back of your neck, she could grab them things like she had a handful of hair and jerk them straight up, make you sit straight up in a pew at church. No.
Mine would pinch you in that soft spot underneath your arm. Oh, my goodness.
See, we all got stories, that's for sure.
I got one that still does that.
And just try it.
It wasn't. Don't make me tell you again. Don't make me tell you again.
And I can tell you, when you got that look, and on that ride home, I don't know how everybody else was, I would sit in the car and would not say a word, praying to God that she would forget about whatever it was I got to look for, not to get my tail whooped.
I used to say my mama sat in the choir just so she could watch us.
My grandma played the piano. My mom said they would all sit in the row, and if they would get to acting up, she'd just peer over that piano and they'd stop. That's all she'd do, just look right over that piano and they'd stop. But
I want to touch on something Tony said about people are raising their kids like friends. these days. And it seems like the more and more you go on in the generation, it gets worse and worse where the parent role has kind of flipped upside down and you're just raising a best friend which is, it's great. You should be friends with your kids, but first there should be respect and there should be a reverence, like you said, for what your parents say. And most kids these days, they're just not raised that way. They're given things that we weren't given, that if we wanted, we could go out and try to earn some money and buy.
That's right.
But I remember this has nothing to do with it, but I remember when Reebok first came out with them tennis shoes. I was in middle school. I was like, Mama, I want a pair of them tennis shoes. The old canvas, the mesh side. She said, them shoes are $25. I ain't paying $25 for no stinking tennis shoes.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I wish I could buy them $25 tennis shoes today.
Right, buddy.
But anyway, back on that, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure everybody in this room at some point has been guilty of the buddy syndrome rather than being the parent that you should be. And you can see, have you ever heard the saying that hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times?
That's right.
We're in a cycle right now. We're fixing to hit hard times because we're a soft, easy generation right now.
That's right.
That has raised a bunch of soft, easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some good kids out there that are hard, good workers, good morals, good standards.
Yep.
But we're in a cycle right now that it's going to be tough when the next generation comes along, when everybody's soft and mushy and nobody's going to stand for nothing. Everybody wants to stand for something when everybody's with them. What are you going to do when they're standing there by themselves?
Right.
Are they strong enough to do it?
That's right.
Well, are they strong enough to run a house? Like you said, we're raising them, and you have to have that mindset. Like us, we're not raising boys, we're raising men. We're not raising kids, we're raising men.
That's right.
And I've told my boys, and this might be wrong, but I've told my boys, I'm like, you are going to be men. You will be the man of the house. It all falls on you. Yes, I pray that you marry a Christian woman that will help carry and some of those burdens, but you're it. Like you're the provider, the head of that household. There's so much responsibility that falls on you. And, and if we don't raise our boys that way, like you said, and they're soft and mushy, and I mean, you want them to be compassionate, but they've also got to know they've got a big responsibility.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
It's a lot. But one of the bullet points I was thinking about today was, raising our kids in a world that hates Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge for us, which, I mean, that's always been true. But I see it a lot now. We have elementary, middle school. Those ages are tough. Very tough ages, even down to elementary school. What our little one would hear and see, our oldest was in 5th grade, and he said there was 2 girls in his class that couldn't figure out what they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. 5th grade. I mean, you don't. And Drew in 2nd grade one time had a kid that said he didn't believe in God. And that sucker punched our son in 2nd grade when he came home. And I thought he'd gotten in trouble at school. And he finally said the kid's name, and he said he don't believe in God. And that bothered him so bad and burdened him. But not a lot of kids would have brushed that off and not think nothing of it. I'm thankful that our kid knew the seriousness of that.
That's right.
We got called to the principal's office one time. I think Caleb was in 5th grade, and we're thinking he's done something bad. And what it was they had silent lunch. Well, growing up, I mean, my grandpa would tell you, I'm going to pray for my food before I choke. I'm going to pray for yours too so you don't choke. And Caleb had said the blessing at the table, and he got sent to the principal's office for saying the blessing. And he didn't understand, well, this was normal for us, but it wasn't normal for his atheist teacher, who was a proclaimed atheist. And it's hard fighting that when you're trying to instill these values at home. And then, I don't care who you are. I don't care how old we are. We've all gone through school. We've all done things. And for some reason, it always seems like the bad always overtakes the good. It's the ones that have the bad influence. You think, okay, my son's strong or my daughter's strong, and they're going to be a good influence on others, and it starts out being that way, but it doesn't take long for the bad side to take over,
Oh yeah.
and they just quietly, just kind of pull back a little bit from it, and they're not as opinionated and as boisterous about their voice because of fear of being made fun of.
Yeah.
And that's sad. And that's been for generations.
Yeah, I mean, it was even that way when I was a kid. I just automatically assumed everybody loved Jesus.
Exactly.
You do
Well, that's
at
all
that
you
age.
knew.
And when you hear someone don't, I mean, that is, I mean, even as an adult, when I hear that, and I've heard it a lot, but still, every time I hear it, it's just a shock. Like it's the first time I've heard somebody don't believe in God. Like, and I just couldn't imagine the feeling, but it really burdened him.
Yeah.
And you pray that your kids always stay that burden, and like you said, and they don't try to fall into, well, that's not cool.
That's right.
I'm just going to be a silent Christian, because you can't be that way. You can't be that way.
These days, they have to deal with so much more in school than we ever did, which is why we have to pray so much more for our kids. When Ryan was going through high school, they had to deal with what were they called? The furries. And he would come home and talk about that, and he had to explain it because I'm like, what are you talking about? And I mean, we just didn't have that. And he was like, Mom, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, you are right. But he understood that it was wrong, and he was very vocal about it. But he knew because he was taught better. And I'm thankful that he stood strong on his values, and he was too much like me, I guess, and very vocal. But I'm like, okay, well,
Brian's like a Peter. He's ready to go at the drop of a hat.
he is.
Well,
yes,
yeah,
he
you
is.
can-
So
That's your ear off.
yeah, he will. So, but I'm glad about that. At the same time, a lot of kids aren't. So it's bothersome. It's troubling that there's so many kids out there that don't know that that's wrong, and that they are confused.
Well, saying I'm Generation X, it is what it is. But if one of my youngins was to come home today, now we had youngins later in our marriage. Good Lord decided to make us wait till I was 30 for some reason. If one of my youngins come home today and said, "Hey, I identify as a cat today," get out in the yard and chase mice in the field then. Not in my house.
Yeah.
But unfortunately today parents are, well, that's okay. If you want to be a kitty cat, you can be a kitty cat. If any of us would have walked in our house back in the 80s and told our parents that, it would have been a laugh, and then it would have been, no, I'm serious, and then it would have been a
Let me beat that out of you.
yeah, just let me show you how I'll treat a dog that don't want to listen. And it would have been the end of it. But unfortunately, today we've got parents that, well, let's just be honest, they let their kids run their house. They let their kids run their house, and they have access to, when we were growing up, Jesus was everything that we love, because that's how we were raised. Look at what's on TV today that kids are watching at kindergarten levels of the stuff they're seeing and being
Primetime
exposed
TV
to.
was pornography in our day. Primetime TV today was pornography in our day.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And our children are exposed to that, because if you don't think, and this is for anybody out there, if you don't think that your kids know how to pull stuff up on their phone and stream any show that they want to see, because I'm going to tell a little bit, because this is raw and real right here. Me and Carla sitting there and we're looking one night on Netflix, and what was the name of that show? Yeah. We're looking on through Netflix, and there's the Outer Banks. Well, what is that? Because the first thing I thought of was fishing.
Right.
So we hit the play button on it. Well, wrong nothing. My youngin' comes out the room and said, "Y'all watching Outer Banks? I'm waiting on the new season to come out." What did you just say? It gets better. Just keep watching. No, give me your junk. Give me the phone right now. That's a wrap. I didn't even know you knew how to get into my Netflix account, much less be able to find something like that. But when we were growing up, you didn't have that. I mean, I watched Thundercats growing up.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I watched. He-Man.
That's right.
Yeah,
By the power of Grayskull, baby.
yeah. Here we go, baby. Now we're talking.
I watched Long Range.
Tom and Jerry, baby. I mean, come on.
That's offensive.
They didn't never even talk, and it was a great cartoon. They never said a word.
Exactly.
But it was a great cartoon. Well, some of the things they did were just unrealistic. Roadrunner and Coyote. You're not dropping a bowling ball off of a cliff onto a coyote's head and him getting up and running from it. But the point I'm trying to make is now what they're watching is realistic things that adults do. And they think it's okay at the age of 6 or 7 years old. And they have the access to people who or things that you see, like what we're experiencing now locally in Storytime show. And you got parents dragging their kids to that. I'll just be on crap.
I like the way you work the word drag into that.
Yeah. It's sad. It's a sad day and time that as parents of our generations, kids don't instill that into their children, that is wrong and jacked up from the floor up.
And whose responsibility is that to teach your kids? I mean, I'm just going to segue right into here. I want to call it bullet points. Whose responsibility is it to teach your kids? And the reason I say that is we got a brother. He's here, and I'll say his name is Sean. I'll leave it at that. He'll tell it every time. It's not the church's responsibility to teach your kid about the Bible.
Exactly.
It is yours. Okay? It's also your responsibility to discipline your children and teach them how to interact with other people. Now, what's the church's responsibility in the role in raising your kids? I'll just go ahead and say I can be with my kids and we can have talks about Jesus, talks about the Bible. We can have Bible study, but until they get around some people their own age and do the same thing, it hits a little different when they're amongst the brethren, as I'd say. We're a different generation. They don't react the same way to us that they will with them. So to me, I think the church plays a key role. Forsake not the assemblance of yourself in the house of the Lord.
Correct.
I think it's a big role in how they develop and how they grow as a Christian to interact with fellow Christians in their age group and see, because they're all going to go through this together. We can go through some of that stuff with them in a way, but we're not going through it with them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So y'all, I know Carla looked like she was fixing to say something. She was trying to snatch that microphone away from Philip. So
I had wrote down some stuff, but I had wrote this down. I said our children will enter a world that has no room for Christ. It's fine for Jesus to be a baby as long as he don't grow up. It's fine for Jesus to be a man as long as he's not God. It's fine for Jesus to die as long as that death carries no significance.
and Lord help there be any blood.
Right. And so I put the world is okay with
But without it.
Yeah. What does not condemn. But that's not what Jesus condemned. I mean, that's what's going to happen. He's going to come back and everybody's going to have to answer. But, that's the world we live in, like you said. The parents, we are letting our kids do things that's going to cause grave danger to them.
Yes.
And you're talking about the parents' responsibility. It is our responsibility to teach our kids. Go back to Abraham and Lot, and you look at the powerful father that Abraham was to Isaac, and that influence, that testimony that his son witnessed, and then you look at Lot and how he carried his children and put them in the path of temptation. He put them in all that evil. He got 2 of his kids out of there, but The rest of them didn't leave. And so they
And the two kids weren't
I
very
mean,
good either.
no, they weren't. But you know, and the whole city burned up, and he had to leave his family there, and that's what's going to happen if we don't get real about it.
Yeah, I think as parents, it's our responsibility to make sure that our children, like you're saying, are being friends with the right people, not just allowing them to go and hang out with whoever they want to. I've always been the type of parent that, you know, if they come home and say, "Hey, I'm going to so-and-so's house," well, who is this person? I've never met this person. You're not going to spend the night with somebody I've never even met. Have them come over and hang out, or, you know, come to dinner or whatever. I've not met this person. I don't want you hanging out with them until I get to know them, you know, and then we'll see. But a lot of parents are just not like that, and they'll be like, "Yeah, okay, sure." There's a lot of different parenting types, but I want to know where my kid's at. I want to know who they're hanging around with. What type of person is it? Why do you laugh?
I'm laughing because I don't see how our parents did it.
I know. I mean, we left the house. We didn't come home till the lights came on at night, and we were gone all day. You know, we'd be down at the creek, like you said, playing, and, you know, we came home when the street light came on, and that was every day. But you can't do that nowadays because there's too many people that you can't trust in this world, and we have to know where our kids are.
Oh yeah, you keeping up with them is paramount. But like you said, it was different back then. I mean, but then I like to take it a step back from that. How our parents raised us, and then if you go back to their parents, they probably thought they were just super lax on the kids, on us growing up. You know, I knew better than to go in the house from the hours of after school till dark. You know, if you wanted to drink of water, it come out the hose pipe around the back of the house. That's where it come from.
We didn't have the bottled water.
No, you know, I couldn't do it today to save my life. I was an expert tree climber. Well, I could shimmy up a tree in a skinny minute, and I got my butt tore up one time for being about 35 foot in the top of a pine tree. My mama cut the top of the driveway and seen me up there from way back down the road. But that's what we did. You didn't have to worry about where we were going to be. We knew we had to come home.
And you came home from church and changed clothes into some play clothes. You didn't go out in your good clothes.
That is my pet peeve. My two youngins, they'll come have the good shorts on. They'll be outside doing something, mess them up, and I'll have to hear, "Well, we're going to have to buy." No, we ain't. They're going to have to wear them like they are. That's the end of that. I ain't messing. That's my pet peeve, but that's a whole nother subject right there.
I think
Just another Amazon package to come to the door.
I think another thing is the parents today are just a lot of younger parents. They want to do what they want to do, and they push off the parenting responsibilities a lot of times on the grandparents. And I'm so thankful we decided early in our children's, when they were little, we were living in town in a neighborhood, and we decided, you know, I don't know who everybody is in our neighborhood. I don't know, you know, what they, you know, if you've got a little girl, do they have an older brother? Do they, you know, who's in the house? What are they doing? So we just started every Friday night, we started doing a bonfire in our backyard. We had hot dogs and marshmallows. And everybody, and about dark, all these kids were, a lot of them, I'd say 80% of them were from single parent homes, divorced families. And they would start wandering up, and we tell ghost stories. We tell, you know, just anything. So we always, even in the high school, we always tried to make our home available. I couldn't control what they were out and what they were doing when they weren't with us, but we tried to make it as appealing for them to be home and bring their friends home and make their friends feel welcome and cook supper or watch a movie with them or whatever. And I think still, even though ours are grown, it's so important that you be a part of your children's lives, even as they get to become teenagers from elementary school to high school, to make their friends feel welcome so they'll have good friends to hang out with. Our son went on a date one night. He was 16, 17. He come home at 11:30, and he had two buddies sitting in our house in our den watching a movie with us. They rode by and saw us grilling out They went to the store and got something to put on the grill, and they come back and they watched 2 movies with us while he was on a date. And he walked in the house. He said, "What are y'all doing here?" And they said, "Well, we like being here." I mean, so always make yourself friendly to the good friends, and hopefully it'll draw them all in. But just keep your house open and
It's
show them love.
It's like the story Ryle tells. You know, you can take the dog from inside the house and put it down there in the pen.
Mm-hmm.
That dog that you took out of the house that was clean ain't gonna clean them
no.
dogs up in the pen. So you got to be particular about who your kids
It's
is
gonna
around,
pick up
who they're hanging out
fleas.
with. You
And
know,
everything else.
Clay will be, hey, I want to go do this and this with such and such. Well, I don't know such and such, so no. Well, but such and such is going. Well, I'm glad that such and such knows such and such, but you ain't going. Now, me and your mama go with y'all, and we'll vet it out that way. But no, it's different.
I think one thing that I want to hit on. One thing I want to hit on is, and I raised my kids the way I felt was best. I didn't give my kids participation trophies.
Come on.
That's right.
I try to teach my kids accountability. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And, you know, both my kids will tell you, you know, I'll let you do this and I'll pay you to do it. But if you don't do it, I'm not paying you. You know, and it's got to be done right. And to me, in the world we live in today, you're robbing your children of potential. You're robbing their thought process to say, well, all I got to do is show up. You know, and I mean, that's the way a lot of the, I better not go there. That's just the way a lot of people are, not just kids, but parents too. They, you know, they were raised in. I mean, you're talking about a generation that's just. I'm not going to mention the age group, but I mean, you can go back and see. When I grew up, if you made the All-Star team,
You earned it.
you earned it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. And I'm gonna share this story. Take me just a little bit. Y'all just bear with me. But I remember my son. He loved to play baseball. He loved baseball, and he was good at it. And the older he got, the more challenging it was because he'd always played up. And he became a small fish in a big pond. Let's leave it at that. Well, and I thank God for the lesson. It was hard as a parent to see it. But I thank God for it because it changed him. I watched him physically change him. Not only physically, but spiritually change him. Because when it changes you inside, it's spiritual. Yeah. And he was chosen to go with the All-Star team to play. But they went out and got some more players. And he didn't get to play one inning all weekend long in the state. We was playing in the state championship. And then he got called up to bat. But then the coach hollered and told him to sit down. They wanted somebody else. As a parent, that's hard. That's hard. Well, they went on and they won. And I'll never forget. We got to the truck. And he took that trophy and he threw it on the ground. And as a parent, you know, I had two choices. I could put my arm around him and treat him like a baby, or I could tell him, you pick that trophy up. That trophy ain't based on one night or one weekend. You had to earn it to get here. You pick it up.
There you go.
And he picked it up. And when he got home, he didn't even put it up. You know, he just kind of laid it down on the corner. And he told me before he went to bed, he said, I'm done. I said, well, you need to sleep on that. And you know, I'm sitting here with a broken heart because I want to, you know, you want to go hug them, say, it's going to be all right, son. You know, I got you. No, you're at a point in your life, 13, 14 years old. I know you think I'm crazy, but at 13, 14 years old, there's big things happening inside of you. Yeah. And we got up next morning. Well, he had to make a decision whether he was going to go to regionals, Southeast regionals, or not. We got up next morning, and I said, Bubba, I said, you got to make a decision whether you're going or not. I got to call coach and let him know. I ain't going. I could care less. I ain't going. Okay. Called coach, told him I wasn't going. I went back and I sat down on the side of the bed and I told him. And this is the exact words, so help me. I remember just as good. And adults can listen to this because it can apply to you too, because it applied to me too. I've had to go back but I sat there and told him. I said, you know, you can cower down and quit. It's your choice. I'm not going to make you do either one. You can cower down and quit, or you can figure out what you got to do to be better. Yeah. And that's us today. Yeah, that's true. You can cower down, or you can figure out what you got to do to be better. Well, come fall, they called one enough he was going to play. I don't know, Daddy. I said, son, it's your decision. Let it go. He played. He went back out there and played. And he worked on what he needed to do to get better. He never struggled making team or anything. He struggled in games. And I say that to get to the point to where we're in high school. And the summer before, right before fall workouts, he was a junior in high school going into his senior year. He'd always pitched. He'd always played shortstop, third base, whatever. Well, there was an accident happened and he hurt his arm. So doctors telling him that he's going to have surgery. And the next thing you know, another doctor says, we'll take physical therapy. Well, long story short, not quitting then, he went back into his senior year and had the best year of his baseball career. Mm. And I say that to say, as a parent, sometimes you just got to walk away. Sometimes you just can't baby them. Sometimes you've got to be a parent, not a friend.
Yeah. I know. I've seen that too. I mean, sports is, you do learn a lot of life lessons in sports. I mean, talking about the All-Stars, our little one made the All-Stars this year. He didn't make it last year. He made it the year before. He didn't make it last year. He was devastated. And it was hard for me to say, Drew, you're good, but the others were better. You don't want to be on that team if you didn't earn to that position. I mean, that's a big deal. He made it this year. And, you know, we're talking about the friends in life. His best friend is on the All-Star team. And Drew pitched. And you know, you've had kids play baseball. Those All-Star games, that's a big deal. You know, we're fighting for the district championship to go to the state. Drew's pitching. And it's stressful. You've got the other team banging on that fence, yelling at you, wanting you to fail. Mm-hmm. And Drew, I think it's a full count. Mm-hmm. And I think someone advances. They get or is it bases loaded? Okay. Bases loaded, 1 out. Yeah. No, it was 2 outs because all he needed to do was pitch 1 strike. Okay. Well, he's struggling. All right, I can't remember. It was such a stressful.
It is very stressful.
I remember it all.
But his best friend, the back catcher, notices that he is struggling, so he calls a time, And that's hard watching your kid up there struggle because you just want to go up there and like, it's okay. But he walks to him, Drew walks off the mound, and his best friend turns him around and walks him back up that mound. I don't know what he says because apparently it's code. You're not supposed to talk about what you talk about up there. And he says something to him, and Drew's whole demeanor just changed at that point, and Drew threw a strike and got him out. And that was a good friend right there.
Right.
That was a good friend. And that's how it is in life too. You've got all these people wanting you to fail in life, hollering at you, and then God sends out one friend
Exactly.
to get you out of that inning.
That's right.
But, and the whole way home, I mean, they ended up, not that game, but they ended up not winning. They played 16 innings of baseball. We were there from 4, the game started at 5 and went in till 11:30 that night. And I mean, and it was just the defeat, and you're like, that's life, son. That's life. And
She's 100% correct that they lost. It was a very hard way to lose, and as a parent, I try not to get mad on a baseball field. I have twice, and this past week was one of the times that I got mad on a baseball field.
No comment.
But as a parent, I try not to lose my cool. Normally, it's the opposite. Normally, I'm telling Carla, stop, be quiet, or some of that nature, just calm down. We're spectators. I've been on the other side of that fence coaching those kids. And those parents on that side of the fence, that ain't no fun. The game ended. They all played their hearts out, and they left it on the field. And I'll just say it. They got robbed. They got cheated out of the game. And that's not just me saying that because I went back, we videoed it, and we edited the video. I can see it. But to have to tell my youngin' on the way home, you did great. You did everything that you were supposed to do. That's life, son.
Yeah.
You ain't going to walk, or you are not. Let's be grammarly correct, I guess.
No.
You are not going to walk into work one day and then them say, oh, well, everybody's going to get this. That's not life. You're going to mess up. You're going to have people that's going to cheat you. You're going to have people that's going to do you wrong. You're going to have people let you down. That's life. There's no participation awards in this. I am, Carla, tell you, she got mad at me one time when Clay first started playing ball. I made him give a participation trophy back. No, we ain't taking that mess. I don't want it. And I would not have if the participation trophy had not been the exact same trophy that the champion team got. But it was exactly the same. No, you can give them a medal for their season or something like that. But to give them something that was the exact same thing as what the team that worked the hardest, played their best, and no, you're not teaching a kid anything. And you can argue with that. You can say, well, you're teaching them sportsmanship. You teach them sportsmanship by going up there even though something went wrong and shaking the other team's hand.
Yeah.
You're teaching them sportsmanship.
Yeah.
I'm not giving no participation trophy. I didn't get one.
Yeah.
That's how life's hard.
That's how we got into this mess.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
opinion.
Life's hard. It's not meant to be easy. Same thing as our Christian walk. I use an example sometimes. If you think that being a Christian's easy,
It's not.
you've lost it. Look at the disciples.
Yeah.
Look at the disciples. Their walk was hard. It's hard to be a Christian. It's hard to raise kids this day and time. But it's not meant to be easy. But you got to learn and to watch your kids be disappointed, but to have to be not coddle them and pull them in and tell them it's okay and show a stink and all that stuff. It's what you got to do.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to teach them.
Participation trophies are why everyone is so easily offended and why they think they're owed something. And that's the problem with society today. And children don't need them. They need to be taught they're going to be disappointed and how to deal with it.
That's two things, that what she said, what you said, and going back on Tony's story about getting hurt.
Yeah. Tell it, brother.
It took me back to church hurt.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. You're going to
Yes.
get disappointed. Somebody's going to let you down. You're going to get your feelings hurt. Something's going to happen. You got a choice to make. Are you going to lay down and waller in it, go off on your pity party and whine about it? Are you going to dust yourself off and get better? Yes, we're saved. We're going to, okay, it's like the participation trophy. Yes, we're playing ball. We're saved. We're going to get us up. We're going to go to heaven. That's what we think as a Christian. Are you trying to get better at it?
Yeah.
If not,
Yeah.
why not? I mean, if you're just showing up to punch your clock in on Sunday morning to say I went to church, I'm a good Christian person, or you working? What are you doing out in the field? Are you doing the? I played baseball coming up, but I'm a football player. Ryan's a football player. Nobody sees all the work you put in. The only time they see what you do is when it's game time. Sunday morning's game time. Everybody shows up. They got, they're here for the service. What about the work? Are you putting in the work on the off days, in the off season? Are you trying to better yourself as a Christian?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to touch on is Carla said it about the little boy walking out to the pitcher's mound. Somebody taught him that. That didn't just come.
Right.
How do
His
you
mom and
teach
daddy.
your kids
Exactly.
to be that friend? I need that friend. Every one of us needs that friend.
And it's important too, that friend. That friend's cultivated because his mama and daddy are friends of ours who are Christians and who are raising their children right, and who there would be no if his parents was to call me today and say, "Hey, we're going to the beach for 2 weeks and we want to take Drew with you," I'd have absolutely no qualms about it, because I know where he's going. I know what their standards are, what their values are. And, but you have to cultivate those friendships with those parents to make sure you're putting your kids in the right situation to have that friend. And I know we had said it before we started, how lucky some of our children are to have friends their age that pray for them.
Amen.
That's right.
Because we didn't always have that growing up. I mean, I grew up in church. I had a youth group. I had friends. We prayed for one another, but not to the level that I see some of this. To me, one of the things that's amazing in our church at Covenant, one youth can go to that altar to lay something down at that altar, and there'll be 30 that pile in behind them to pray over them and support them. And I can tell you, some of it might be for show that are going up there because the other ones are going up there, but I can promise you, I know some of these youth personally, they praying for that youngin' outside of these doors of this church.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
And
important.
I think our children see the way we react to situations. And we all need that type of friend to be there, even when we don't ask them to. They just show up unexpectedly. But in return, we can't always be the takers. We have to be, in turn, that friend to somebody else. And I think your children need to see you. They learn by example. So if you're someone who sits back, woe is me, and everybody has bad situations and bad things that happen in life, and everybody has trials. But if you're constantly that person who is constantly looking for someone to come pray with you at the altar, then maybe you need to second think about yourself. Well, how many times have I gone down to pray with somebody? How many times have I been that strong person for somebody else? It needs to be paid back in return.
Yes, absolutely.
And that also teaches your child, oh, well, my parents can do that. They can stand up. They can bow their heads at a restaurant and say a blessing. They look at everything that we do constantly, every day.
How they treat people, how they worship God.
That's right.
I mean, it's like you said.
Not to be embarrassed. Show them that you're not embarrassed to do so.
That's
Because
right.
if you cower down and think, well, there's just too many people around here, they're going to see that. And it's going to cause them to cower down in public
Yeah,
when they're on their own.
and you don't need them to.
Go ahead.
I think the biggest thing for me right now, the heaviest thing for me right now is seeing kids, raising kids, and kids, I don't want to say struggling. You know what I'm saying? How do I say it? I see kids today being given everything they want. Okay? And I'm guilty. I'm just like anybody else. I tried my best to give my kids everything that I could. Everything that I could. But one thing opened my eyes one Christmas. I went out and spent the last dime I had for them for Christmas. Now listen. Now. This is good. Do you know what they had the most fun with? The box. The box. And you know,
I think we've all been there.
and when I, you know, I think we spend so much time trying to buy them material things.
Mm-hmm.
Spending, and I'm guilty. I'm just going to say right now, I was guilty. I should have spent more of my time than being out trying to make money to buy them something that was going to tear up in 6 weeks. What I instilled in them, the time, that lasts a lifetime.
Yeah.
And then you know, it's just like, and I'll just say it, I pull up at the gas pumps. And I remember when I was a kid, my daddy told me I could not get my license till I got a job and I could pay my own insurance.
That's right.
Okay. And I pull up at the gas pumps at any given day. And you see these young kids pulling up in these big F-250 trucks and they're still in school. And I'm thinking, what?
What
You
do they
know,
have to
when
look
I
forward
was,
to?
you know, when I was growing up, I'd have been tickled to death to drive a Pinto. You know, and today we're looking at parents who are, and you know, if you can do it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But are we doing them a justice or an injustice?
Injustice.
Because what have they got to work for? You know, I want someday, I'd love to have me a big old 2500 Chevrolet Duramax diesel. I would. That day hadn't come for me yet. And it may not. But I don't want to, I want to have something that will give me a reason to go to work. That'll give me a reason to work with my hands. And we're in a generation now where everything was given to us, so they don't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
And like Ryle says all the time, he's like, you're not where mom and dad, everybody want to come right straight out of high school and be where mom and daddy is now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, you set them up like that. When mom and daddy ain't there to take care of them and they get out on their own, there's a hard realization that like, I can't afford this thing.
That's right.
But that's a hard lesson to learn because Clay's got a 4-wheeler. He's 13, fixing to be 14 years old. He's got a 4-wheeler. Now, I bought him the 4-wheeler. I wanted him to have it. I was proud when he got it. He comes to me the other day and he says, hey, I want to get LED headlights, new plastics, and something else done to this 4-wheeler. And it comes up like $1,500 worth of work. And I'm like, good luck. And my wife sitting right here can tell you. I said, good luck, because I'm not paying for it, buddy. Ain't going to happen. You can buy it and you can put it on there. You're going to be 16 in just a few years. You better be saving your doggone money to get you something else to drive that you can take you to town.
But you know,
your butt to town.
But you know what's funny is when you do that and they go out and make that money, they don't want to spend it.
No, it was the same
They find
thing.
out how hard it is
He
to make it and how quick it is to spend it.
Yeah, he looked at me one day and he said, "You know, I don't understand something, Daddy." And I said, "What, son?" He said, "How come so and so when they decide they want this, their mom and daddy just take them and go get it?" I said, "Because that's just what they do. Well, why can't we go and do that?" I don't want to live for the man, for one thing. I don't want to live a life of debt, for one thing, son. I said, another thing is you don't really need that. You need to learn how to work for what you're going to get. Now, me and Carla, we've bantered back and forth on this. You know, he's getting ready to start driving. Now, everybody in here is probably different. But when I got ready to drive, I can tell you, my mom and daddy said driving is a privilege. It is not a necessity. I will take you back and forth to your job. If you want to drive, you will make the car payment, you will make the gas payments, and you will pay for the insurance. And I can remember it to this day. My mom and daddy paid their insurance every 6 months. I did not have the 6 months of coverage for my car. It got parked in the yard. My mom and dad drove me back and forth to work till I had the money to pay for it. If I wanted a parking pass for school, I had to go and get it. And I'm going to teach. And that's how I'm going to teach my son, because you got to learn that's a privilege, son. I'll help you. I will help you get your first vehicle. I'll help you make sure that it stays on the road and do those things. But you're going to have to work. You're going to have to buy the insurance. You're going to have to pay for the car. You're going to have to put the gas in the car. You want to do these things, it comes at a cost, because nothing in life will be handed to you. One day you got to make a house payment.
By just
tell you-
handing it to them like that, what you're talking about,
Is it
are
injustice?
you are doing them an injustice. You're not teaching them values and morals. You're just handing it to them, and that's great if you can do that. And it's not that you can you, it's should you,
Exactly.
because like you're saying, I mean, when I grew up, there were 5 of us living at home, and I mean, my parents couldn't do that. So, I mean, yeah, I drove a Volkswagen Rabbit to school.
I remember Sarah
and
coming
I had to
home.
pay for the gas, and thank goodness. I mean,
Exactly.
I could go on one
I
tank of
didn't have
gas
a
for 2
card.
weeks.
That's right, I worked.
But I did have to pay for everything, my gas, my insurance, all that. And I had a job since I was like 14 and a half. And for a long time worked 2 jobs. And so, what are we teaching them? That's the importance. And that's what people need to be looking at. What are we teaching them? Because at some point they're going to be out on their own. And can they handle it?
That's right. And that's what I said. I took the mic from Philip. But the result of his mom and dad being that way, he is a great husband who's always taking care of us. And I say that because they were like that with him. And that's what worries me, if we don't do our children the same way. And it's so hard to tell them no, especially when all their friends have it, or but when we have to make them work for it, earn it, because what kind of men will they be?
Exactly.
I don't pay your friends' bills.
Exactly.
That's what I tell them.
It's
I'll
their
pay your
job to
friends'
supply their needs, not their wants.
And that's a hard lesson to teach them. Write it down. This is what you need, and this is what you want. Won't need it at the top of the paper, and fill it out.
And that's
you figure it
hard
out
when they're
really
going
quick.
to school with kids who have everything given to them. I'll never forget, Sarah came home from school one day, and she had lost a tooth that week, and
Imagine that.
Our tooth fairy, you lost your first one, you got $5. After that, you got $1. When we were little, you got a quarter. Yeah. Well,
don't
she
even
would
know what
come
tooth
home from
fairy is.
school one day, and she said, "Mama," she said, "this girl in my class, she got a $100 bill." I said, "Honey, that tooth fairy lives on the other side of town. They don't come on this way."
That one lived on the Unionville side of the track.
It's an injustice. I mean, it's crazy.
People be pulling their own teeth.
That's what I said. I'd have had wires.
What is her mom and daddy's name? Because I've got about 30 in my head that I'll give up.
I've been pulling some teeth.
That's what I said.
Clay had to have his first 2 teeth pulled from the dentist, and he said, "I wonder how much the tooth fairy's going to bring." Under my breath, I said, "A bill. He's going to bring you a bill."
And it was a bill, I promise. But, we could sit here and go on and on and on and on and on. But you're right. We've done our kids an injustice. And I'm glad that I can surround myself with the right kind of people. And my youngins can see that and see that life ain't sunshine and rainbow. It's not. It's never, and if you go out into this world today and think that you're going to get a participation trophy and you're going to start out with a 2,000 square foot, well, now these days, a 4,000 square foot house with an in-ground swimming pool, and you're going to drive $100,000 vehicles. I mean, I was looking at a truck the other day, a brand new Chevrolet truck at $89,000. I said, it'll sit there. I'll drive that 2011 with the cracked dash in it.
Dude, I was at the
right.
Kia dealership the other day, $80,000. It's a Kia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But the
Sorry,
prices
Kia
of-
dealer.
We will take a sponsorship if anybody out there from Kia would like to send us a car to drive.
Speaking of sponsorships, not that we're sponsored by them, but we have failed to mention Red Bull today.
I was going to get it at the end. The Red Bulls are currently locked up in the pastor's office, and he does have me and Chris some sugar-free Red Bull in the refrigerator in the pastor's office, but we did not have them. Red Bull, if you're listening, I will be sending you an email and a few clips of the videos of the podcast. So if you would like to sponsor, we will take a little Red Bull refrigerator for our room here.
I think my end quote will be, raising kids is stressful.
Amen.
Raising kids is a new journey every day.
Amen.
And you won't do it alone. And I feel bad for families that split and have to have, a single parent to take that responsibility. And I give all the credit in the world to somebody that does it.
Yeah.
Because it's tough with two.
Yeah.
But you've got to have Christ in the middle of it. I didn't always do the right things. I didn't always live like I should.
Yeah.
But I pray that I live strong enough that one day they'll see everything that I've taught them.
Amen.
Yeah.
And people say raising kids. I don't think, this is just my take, I don't think you ever quit raising kids.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Even though I got one that lives 20 miles away and I got one that lives 2 miles away, I still love them as much or more today than I did when they lived under my roof. And I think sometimes we look at it and think that, well, they're grown, they're on their own now. Listen, as a parent, there's been times I needed my kids and they needed me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to drop whatever I got and I'm going to go see after them. Now, be it right, be it wrong, God gave me a responsibility for those kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be the parent I should be, whether it's a parent or a grandparent, and I love my grandbaby. But you never give up. You never give up no matter where they are. And I will say this, my kids aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. I didn't raise them as a perfect parent. But I can tell you this, and I'll say it with all the pride in my heart. They've never asked me for a dime, neither one of them. Since they moved out of my house, they've neither one asked me for a dime. Now, I didn't play the participation game with them. And this is what you get. And my kids will not ask me for nothing. Well, first off, they know I ain't got it. Second off, you build pride in them.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to say that you put so much pride in them that, they'll never ask you for help if that comes to it. Because I've had to break pride and ask for help before. But I'm just saying, nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to raise their kids perfect. But I will say this, if you will hang in there and you will both work together, God will bless your marriage, your home, your family. And then at the end of the day, when you're old and gray and you're sitting on that front porch and you hear that truck pulling up in your driveway and you look and see it's one of your youngins, you can look at them. I come home from my son's the other day and all I could think about coming home was how proud I am that God once gave me the privilege to be their father. Second, what he gave me to instill in them. Now, granted, I'm telling you, they're not perfect. And I'll still say I'm not either. But to see where they're at and where they could be.
Amen.
That's where you've got to look at. Success is not, as a parent, is not a bank account. Success in raising a child comes from two people working together with Christ in the center and doing the best you can.
I got nothing to add to that.
That's good.
You are going to mess up. That's all I say. You are going to mess up, but you got to pick your head up, dust yourself off, and bounce back.
Because it's hard. It's hard.
You got anything?
You said that.
I think we got it about wrapped up for this week. I thank everybody for tuning in this week, and I think by next week, Pastor Ryle will be in Africa or heading that way, right? So be a couple of weeks that we'll be flying solo. Hopefully, we'll have a new topic to come to you with next week. This has been a fun one, though. Thank everybody for tuning in, and thank y'all for your time and dedication to come in and do Where the Rubber Meets the Road, where we get raw and real. And again, the Red Bulls in the refrigerator downstairs in the pastor's office. We couldn't get to it, and none of us had time to stop at the store to get us one. But we will enjoy a cold Red Bull later. So, thank y'all.